Cool. So hello, welcome. This is Erica Glessing, and I'm really excited to have you here with me today for our very first podcast class. Uh, welcome, Melanie. I'm so glad you could join too. And we also have Bree Price. Um, so Bree, the only thing for me is I'm ADD. So if you're going to be doing other stuff, then can you?
Okay, yeah, I'm sorry. I was just waiting for an important thing. I'm sorry.
That's okay. I don't mind if you go do other things. Just take yourself off video for me.
Okay, perfect.
Because that way I can not get distracted because I'm exceptionally ADD. So Melanie, what country are you in today? Are you in Ireland?
I am. I'm at home.
Welcome. So we're gonna start. Today's focus is on, and Lori Larson is also joining us, but she's traveling today, so she wasn't sure if she'd have internet. And we also have Manette who'll be joining us when she can get free from work. We're going to start today really with looking at how the podcast fits in to our lives. So we want to start inviting one show, and some of us have many shows inside of us, like Bree and I in our pre-chat. She already has a couple of shows she's interested in, right, Brianne?
Yes.
So for the purpose of this exercise, we're going to invite one show, specifically one show, to, I like to put it about a foot in front of you in your sort of vision for it. So just like if it were like a car or something, if it were like a book, what happens often for women is we put things inside of our bodies, our businesses, we stick things inside of us, and we think that's a really good safe place, and they kind of hang out in the solar plexus is the most common place when I work with women on their businesses. They tend to stick them inside their bodies, and they think that's really smart. No, I mean, they don't really think about it until I ask, where is your podcast? And if you say it's inside of your stomach, that's not a good place for it to be. But it's quite common. That is the most common way of creating. And, probably it comes from our history of making babies. So we want to take the energy of the show that we're building and just kind of put it in front of us and just kind of do like a gentle hello. Just kind of do a gentle hello to one show. Because one show is going to have its own reaching out. It's going to have its own tendrils out. Now, when it's very first born, it doesn't have that yet because it's still new. So one of the biggest mistakes, I just wanted to spell it right now, is that somehow a podcast can be born and have lots of tendrils and audience and all these people playing with it when it's not even got legs yet. So we want to give our shows 8 to 12 weeks of super amplified promotion as a way of looking at. So it's a long game. Okay, it's a long game. That doesn't mean you can't have money from it right away, but it does mean that if you look at it as being a long game and treating it like a long game, it's going to contribute to you bigger and it's going to be a more solid vessel. Does that make sense? Cool. That was a lot for the first few minutes, huh? So, who just joined us? Who's 780?
It's Lori.
Oh, yeah, you made it. That's awesome. Welcome. So
hi.
We have Melanie, who's in Ireland, and we have Bree. And Bree, I can't remember what state you're in.
California.
Oh, okay, cool. So we do. So I should know that. So let's open with a little round robin of really setting the intention for the 4-week class. So let's kind of wander through each of you and just kind of share. If you have a podcast, one podcast in mind, you could also share that. And then what you'd like to accomplish in these 4 weeks. And let's see. Lori, why don't you go first because you're not muted.
That's awesome. I'll mute myself from my phone as I don't talk. So I am going to start the Wealthy Lala. So I'm sort of deciding on the name, but Wealthy Lala is what's going to be in it. So whether it's the Wealthy Lala Show, I'm working on. And my target is to have it up and running by the end of this 4 weeks. And yeah, definitely.
Beautiful.
Yeah, that's my target. Have it up and running.
Perfect. Okay, and Bree, what about you? Yeah. Thank you for muting and unmuting, though. I really do appreciate that. That will give us a really nice, clean recording, so it's very appreciated.
Good. Yeah, and I apologize in advance. I'm by a main street here, and we might hear sirens, so hopefully we won't. Anyway, mine, I believe what I'm going to do for the purpose of this class is the Candle Magician podcast. And I have a lot of great gifts with fire. And I have some magic candles. And every month I hold events. And we have a certain topic. And we burn away a lot of energy and invite a lot of energy in to help with that topic. So that is what I would like to. And my goal is also to have it up and running by the end of the class, the 4-week class.
So just to clarify, Candle Magician has to do with how fire lights our lives up, or how fire can be used to purify and change, or?
Yeah, it is. But it's basically, we do topics. Like the one we just finished was creating 2019. So it's basically using candles, and I use that, but it's also teaching people how to clear their own energy and create what it is they would like to create. Because I use candles and stones and nature and everything in it, but it's all together.
Beautiful. Well, that's pretty exciting. And just for those of you who weren't on the Zoom that we did, the podcast Like a Boss, Lori talked about doing different things as far as she's a grandma and she loves to cook and she does these magic things with her life. And she didn't really want to be in a little tiny box. And so the Wealthy Lala, for people who just, we want to get our arms around to support her in that creation, really is going to be, I would say maybe like a variety show. Does that make sense, Lori? Is that still on target?
Absolutely. And just for the other girls, Lala is actually my grandma name. So yeah. Yeah. So I'm the Wealthy Lala, like wealthy in life with relationships. I love coaching, especially. And so just, and my curiosity of life and just sort of little tidbits that I learn here and there and sharing it. And I seem to also be, my girlfriend jokingly called me almost like a squirrel, like I gather information, you know.
I'm a paid squirrel.
Yeah. There you go.
I mean, squirrels have really gotten a bad name, you know?
Yeah.
I love squirrels.
Yeah.
Okay. So Melanie, what is your intention?
For me, it's just to get started. Like, I'd really like just to, rather than waiting to create something, just start. Because for me, I don't quite have we'd say the sweet spot. I know where I'm going. I know what I'd like to create. The one thing with me personally is I can get, like, we'd say, if you ask me a question, I can answer it. If I go to create something, I have a lot of information at once. So I'd like just to get some clarity, a good place to start. And if I'm up and running quick, fantastic. You know what I mean? But it is just to really put that first step forward into actually choosing to do something rather than waiting to actually know the right thing to choose, if you get what I mean.
That's perfect. So you're all in the right place at the right time. And this show, these 4 weeks, is definitely designed to kickstart your show into action. And it sounds like we have some action takers. And it's really challenging to, so a lot of times people build things, but what they don't look at all the time is, one thing I like, Raving Fans is a book I've been reading, but we don't look at how the product is going to talk to others, how it's going to touch its audience, and how what's going to happen to its audience when it plays with your show. We really want to start looking from the audience perspective of what they're going to be able to do and get and be as far as they're connecting them to the show. And just energetically, we can see them connected to your show. So that even in your creation, you're interacting with them in a future time, and you're bringing them to the show so that when it does launch, it's actually, what will happen is it will feel like ease. Okay? It won't feel like, oh, I have to go get audience. The perception, because if you're tapping into the perceived audience's requirement of what they'd like to learn from you and what you'd like to teach them. And so like with Bree, what I really like is she's already teaching this kind of in a more realistic, down grounded way. And now she's going to take these teachings and reach people globally through podcasts, which is a new vehicle for it. But she's already got kind of a sense of that there is an audience, right? There is an audience. We want to start kind of, it's almost like talking to the audience ahead of time. So here's an example. When I built the Happiness Telesummit, when I was interviewing people, I could sort of picture what people would be asking that person, you know? Like I was very grounded with my audience. I was tapping into the audience's vibe, and then I was interviewing like with questions that would bring out from that guest what my audience might really want to know. And that it's kind of like awakening that sixth sense. And I'm not scared to talk about that sixth sense here, because this is a very warm environment for our sixth sense. We're going to actually ask our six senses to play hard with us on this game of podcast creation, because we're creating something from nothing, from zero, from scratch. And so we want to really tap that sixth sense and not be shy and pussyfoot around the fact that we're all gifted with that third eye knowing. We want to really tap our third eye knowing, because why not? You know, why not? Why not invite more people through that third eye knowing, right? And then as we're building the show, start tapping into the potential audience. Generally, as a general rule, you want to treat the audience like they are you. So you want to be as smart as you. You want to be as kind of elegant as you, right? I definitely, Melanie, with you, I definitely get like a sense of elegance. So we want to definitely reach out. I mean, Bree, there's very few who are as knowing as you. We want to reach out to those knowing people who that also need to be around knowing people to get that validation that what they know is true, you know? We want to reach out to others who are like us, and not sort of look down on our audience, but we want to actually be in awe of the audience for our shows. So that it's almost like what's showing up for me as we're talking, it's almost a sacred relationship. Because everything we're bringing to them, we're feeding them. You know, we're putting stuff in their bodies. You know, that's a pretty high, you know, think about that. That's crazy. We're like, they're allowing us to feed them. Like, that's a big flippin' honor. You know, I don't just get fed by anybody, right? I can't just eat anything. So I like very certain things that I like. So with a podcast, we want to look at what we put on the plate. And that's why we name it. That's why we define it. Because you just can't go to a menu and say, I'll just take something. I like everything from that restaurant. It doesn't really work like that. So it's hard sometimes for those of us who are super knowing about everything to name things, but I really want you to take some time and define it so that people can say, yes, I would like to eat that. Yes, that's something I want on my menu, you know? And maybe it's just every single thing in here is organic and vegan and cruelty-free and cage-free, and then maybe I will like everything on the menu, do you see? But more likely I'll still, even within that, I might want to know if it's tofu or you know, or carrots, you know, or celery or whatever it is. I'm still going to kind of want to know what I'm eating. And that's your descriptions. So it's really simple when you look at like your podcast, it's kind of like what's on the menu. And then when you differentiate, you allow people seeking that to find you. So that if I feel like brownies, I know how to get brownies. The best way is really to bake them, because I don't really know anybody that makes them like I like them. But if I can't bake it, then I do want to find a place that carries the brownies I like. And then if I like a certain brownie, am I going to be loyal to that brownie? Like, hell yes, right? Like, once I find what I like, that's it. Like, I am not changing. Like, if I love that one, I just love that brownie. And I know it's really strange. I've never talked about brownies before. So maybe Lori's cooking is, like, sneaking into my vocabulary.
I just made brownies this last weekend for my son's birthday.
Oh my gosh. Did you really? I was
I
like
totally
getting a
did.
major brownie vibe in my head. Thank you. Thank you for that. I miss brownies. I love them so much. In fact, I'm
Oh,
guessing that I could make them with a really special chocolate that I like even more. Because I like that dark kind of not that sweet chocolate, you know? It's kind of funny. So this kind of just helps us as we're framing our show because we're starting to ask it what it is. And then as we can talk about it, we're helping people know if they're a match for it. And really, that's one of the things, I'll tell you an epic fail that people make, which is they think they can change the length of their show right and left, and they can just air it when they feel like it, and they can just have anything on it they want. I mean, I'm a little guilty of that myself, but when you start sticking on a length and you start sticking on a day of the week, and then you have parameters. So like on the Candle Magic show, you might or might not talk about something related to something completely unrelated. Like you would probably have the whole thing be about transformation or something, some way of making your life better is what I'm hearing. So you wouldn't like wake up and say, today we're going to talk about hats. I mean, I'm sure you could probably make that show fit almost anything you wanted, but as you start letting people know what's coming, what happens is their taste buds. What happens if you're going to let's just keep on the food thing. It's really working. You're driving to a restaurant and you've been there before and they make like the best, I feel like saying crab cakes. So let's say they make the best crab cakes of anywhere. So what happens to your mouth as you start driving there? It gets a little bit wet. You're like, you just start like picturing it. Imagine you get there, they don't have crab cakes. You're just going to be so flippin' bummed. So as you start telling people your show and as you let people know what's coming and as you then celebrate it when it comes, that's so important that it's not in our own bodies because we have to celebrate it. And Lori, I'm getting this is for you a lot. We're not celebrating it. It actually becomes something of its own. And we want to celebrate it as big as possible. And I don't know about you, but it can be really challenging to celebrating something you made. It's so much easier to celebrate things other people made, right?
absolutely.
Oh my gosh, look at this thing Dane did, or, look at this thing Rebecca did, or, oh my gosh, look at this thing that Erica did, or something. It's like, oh my gosh, it's so cool. And then it's like, look what I did. And you're like, oh, here's something I made. Yeah. So does that help you guys a little bit as you're thinking this through?
It sure is.
So, let's see. I wrote down like how narrow and how broad. So far, both, I would say Bree and Lori's shows are relatively broad. Okay. So they're relatively broad in that their topics are going to be kind of a wide spectrum. Okay. So with yours, Melanie, I'm actually getting, do you want me to share what I'm getting?
Yeah, go for it.
Well, it's really that same theme of adventures in consciousness. So that should not be a big old shock. Considering what you do all the time.
That's me in a nutshell.
But I do get that. So what I got, which was kind of fun. So anytime I offer an idea, please, you guys all feel completely empowered to keep it or put it in the garbage can. But what I got was you could do like roadblocks and how to shift that, like so that like people hit these roadblocks and then they bust through it and they roadblock and they bust through it. It might be interesting if you took different roadblocks on, even from like a stupid one. It's not really stupid, but the car that I like is a Tesla. and the car that I can afford is like, you know, a used Honda. So, you know, where do I go between the $99,000 car and like the $3,000 car? And so my roadblock, then I end up with no car because I can't get the right match of a car. And I'm just saying stuff like that. You could have fun with like what sticks us and how to like unstick us. And I really got that you could help people with, it's almost like becoming a pearl. That's kind of what I got the energy of, was like that a pearl isn't like a perfect pearl to start with. It's actually a piece of sand. And then it gets pearled.
The technical term.
with humans, we're actually the pearl already. And then we put a bunch of sand on us and then we have to pearl again. So that's the energy. That's some of the energy. Does that match what you were kind of going with?
Yeah, no, it's funny because I think that's probably something I talk about best because I can talk about it personally. It's something that I'm doing myself. But just before this podcast started, my phone rang and I wasn't going to answer it because I was coming on this, and I got a hit to answer it. And it was somebody talking to me about a meeting I have next week. And they said that Gary wanted me to lead something. And he actually called me a true creator. And he said, there's not many of them in the world. So the more you're talking, the more I get that. And he was telling me to talk about kind of creating a business you deserve and a life that you love to live. Do you know what I mean? But not like, but more the way that you're speaking than the more, do you know what I mean? Like speaking to people rather than showing them. Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah. That's nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
So it kind of what you're saying is matching that, because then I was like, oh, now I get why I picked up the phone, because it's like
you know, he might help you name it.
Yeah, I think I'll ask him. Yeah, but I think it's funny because even in the first 15 minutes, I just felt I was getting onto a track. You know what I mean? I mightn't have all the words, but I can see it now, kind of making sense.
Sometimes something is bigger than us, and so it eludes us a bit. And so, Lori, I also got that for your show. It's a little bit bigger than you. So you haven't really, one of the reasons we aren't able to see things sometimes is because we don't really get how big we are. And when I say big, I mean like creators of magnitude. And so when what we see is so much bigger than what we've allowed to show up, then we get this like blindness to it. And so just take it little bit by bit, like allow it to be a baby, you know, allow it to be beginner's mind, allow yourself to not know, to know. Because it's like it's really, with a podcast, it's a trust creation. We're building the trust with the audience. In fact, the show itself is saying, prove to me you're going to make me. Prove to me you're going to be true to me. You know, prove to me you're going to give to me regularly, ongoing, forever. No, for a year. You don't have to do it forever. It's not a life sentence. Yeah, cool. Well, you guys are so much fun to play with, and I'm getting that our shows are all really excited that we're making them. So I'm super excited about that. The logo. I want to just talk about the logo a little bit. The logo's job is to get attention. Its job is to stand out from the crowd. And its job is to be like in sync with the show, in sync with the energy of the show. So the truer you get to the energy of the show with your logo, the more of a contribution it's going to be. So again, Melanie, for you, I see a lot of elegance. So there's there's some starkness, which is interesting. Some dark light or red, a lot of the Joy of Business logo type energy is in your show logo. And I'm getting that's going to be a yes, like that'll be a contribution to everyone. Lori, oh my gosh, Lori, I got the funniest vision which you can keep her tossing. It was like a gingerbread cookie. And it was like, you can't see us because we're on the phone, because you're on the phone, but it was like waving.
Oh, jeez.
Because it was
Oh,
like, you know how you go to grandma's house and you get to make gingerbread cookies and you get to make a big mess in the kitchen?
right, right. Yeah.
So keep her
Oh,
toss, but it was really cute.
yeah. Good.
And I got also
Oh,
your audience, if you want to cater to moms and grandmas, not to exclude anyone who isn't that, but to really TLC the ones that are that. Does that make sense?
yeah, totally. That's
Yeah.
well. When I look over my life, even before I started all these different kind of classes, like 18 years ago, um, people have always been interested, and it's usually women and of all different ages that are always interested. So yeah, I get that.
Cool. Brie, yours is just like Candle Magician has so much cool imagery associated with it that I think it's really going to be fun for you to have a logo done. Do you?
It's funny. I don't put very much energy into logos, but this is just reminding me that I need to. So yes.
So I'll tell you logo down and dirty.
Mhm.
And then we can have whatever Melanie creates. No, I'm just kidding. Because Melanie, I'm sorry I keep picking on her, but she's got so much elegance and talent, and everything she does kind of has this beauty to it. So I'm really in awe of it, even though I'm kind of like being fun with it at the same time. Because, to do a podcast logo, right? Actually, what I'm going to do, you guys, it's 10:27, so I'm going to stop the recording. I'm going to start a recording, and we're going to just do a quick DIY logo video, and then I'm going to stop the recording and we'll do the rest of the class. Does that make sense? So that we have a